Hello and welcome to Game Changer Live. We were created to inspire you with topics of coaching, positive mindset, and neuroscience, as well as overcoming perfection, among other things. And we bring on occasional guests every other Monday. We're live every week, Wednesday, I said Monday, I meant Wednesday. And we go live specifically so that I can do what I just did, which is to make mistakes. And that's important. We're going to talk about that a lot today. But reason we go live is so that you can see the most authentic version of us in all of our failure, because that's important. And you're going to find out all about that today on our episode. My name is Daniel Connor. I am a certified professional coach. I am a leader in my local community chapter of the International Coaching Federation, which means I hold myself to the highest ethics that are available in coaching. And I'm the owner of this of my business as well as this channel. I'm the host of this channel, and people hire me when they're ready to get rid of their perfection, when they're ready to overcome it, so that they can live a more authentic version of their life, be successful, and embrace all parts of themselves, so that every day they wake up and see the best version of themselves reflected in the mirror, because that's the person that they're satisfied with, the person that they know exists, and the person that they want to be. And today we're talking about the very central core of perfectionism, which is control. And we're going to explore this topic by going over what it is that we think we're trying to achieve, and how by trying to achieve success, we're actually preventing it. We're going to talk about how controlling the uncontrollable is not only impossible, but it's costing us dearly and harming us on a neurological level. And we're going to talk about what we can do to remove the illusion of control that we're trying so desperately to get by trying to control the uncontrollable. So first of all, let's talk about what control looks like in perfectionists. And I think I am talking in generalizations here. I am not an advocate for the pendulum swinging. The pendulum swings both ways. And if this pendulum swings too far in anarchy direction, that's probably too far. That's not in line with who you want to be, right? Is just to go out willy-nilly and offend people and risk failure at every opportunity, because people don't respond well to that. You're not going to respond well to that. And what are you really going to learn there? I want to practice kind of a medium, a healthy medium between this. But with perfectionists, the very fundamental issue is trying to control the impossible. So by talking about this, my hope is that we're more conscious of it so that we can take steps to control our need to control. So really what this looks like is when perfectionists try to control how people read what we write, hear what we say, trying to control what other people think, especially about how they think about us, trying to prevent failure and ensure success, and trying to prevent judgment, especially considering that that judgment is usually a projection we put on other people based on our own insecurities, that we want people to see us as the hero of our story instead of as a victim or as a failure. And oftentimes those feelings that someone is going to think less of me, is actually coming from inside, that we're judging ourselves as somehow less than we are. So that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about control. Control is all about controlling these things, and they really are outside of the nature of what we can control. We're trying to control the uncontrollable. Let's talk about what we can control. You can control what you say. You can control what you do. You can control how you say what you say, and you can control how you do what you do. That is the limit. That's the sphere around you that you actually have control over. That's what you can reach up and pick up. Reach out and pick up, like I can reach out and pick up my glasses that I'm not wearing. Or I could reach out and pick up a pen. Or I can control what I write on a piece of paper or what I say in this episode. What I cannot control, that's important because it's different. It's outside of the sphere. I cannot control, and you cannot control what other people think about you, how other people react to you. Whether or not you are successful is also outside of your control. Perfectionists are all about expanding that sphere to try to control as much as possible so that they can ensure success and decrease failure. But that's an illusion. They still can only control what they say, what they do, how they say it, and how they do it. It's limited. There's a huge price that we pay if we try to control things outside of our sphere. If we try to control what people think of us, if we try to control how successful or unsuccessful we are. And that is really the primary focus here today, is to recognize these costs, these prices that we're paying. The first one is exhaustion, emotional and social exhaustion. I want to tell you a story today about this specific topic that I ran into on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a social network, if you're not familiar with it. It's kind of like Facebook, but for business. It's all about people working in careers and trying to further those careers, posting about things that are important to the job world, etc. And I'm pretty active there. You can find me there at Connor's Coaching. You can also find me there by my name, Daniel Connor, Conner. And hopefully I'll remember to post a link into this. If you're curious about LinkedIn, you can come and visit there. But there is a story there by someone who's very prevalent. He does a lot of writing. In fact, he is a ghostwriter specifically that works in the legal field. He works with lawyers. And I'm not trying to subvert his story, but there was a really interesting fact that went on with this story that really fit well with today's events. And I saw that and I posted and I commented on it. And uh, basically, the story is he ran across someone else's post that was giving really terrible advice to young lawyers. This is talking about law school and how really by not devoting yourself entirely or 100% to just being a lawyer, you're actually failing to be a human being. And he got really upset about this post because he went to law school and he is not a lawyer. He's making a great income by being focused on law, but not focused on being a lawyer. And that his law degree was very valuable for that. And he felt like that this post was very disingenuous and that this post was also coming from this old school mindset that's no longer valid in the world that we live in today. That you have to just be one thing, that you can't embrace all of yourself. So he recorded this video, this rant video, and it was like a 10-minute video. He edited it down to 4 minutes, and he still felt like people were going to read it, listen to it, and be upset with him. He was trying to control the outcome of that post. He was trying to control how people saw him. He realized that, and he posted a poll on LinkedIn asking for advice. He said, this is my situation. This is this video that I want to release, but I'm afraid to because I'm afraid of how people are going to take it. But at the same time, I have these core values and I really want to ensure that people hear a different message, that they hear that they're not doing something wrong by embracing who they are. They're not doing something wrong by having a career, a side hustle, or a side gig, or having an Etsy page or whatever. And the vast majority of people who took that poll, 90%, and we're talking more than 100 people responded in a day. 90% of the people said, you need to let this rip. You need to post this video and not worry about what other people think. Great advice. And I bet 90% of those people who answered you should do this would also hesitate before posting their real opinion on their page. He ended up posting the video and it was wildly successful. But think about what he had to lose. Yes, he absolutely could have lost the attention of people who disagreed with him. Did he really want those people in his channel anyway? Were they actually adding any value? No. His clientele are those young, excited, and hungry lawyers who need his help in writing what they want to write. He was benefiting them. And if they disagreed with his mindset or his morals, they weren't people who were meant to be in his product of service anyway. They weren't people who were meant to be within his sphere of control. They were people outside of it. But we as perfectionists do everything we can to try to control how other people see us. And by doing that, we're actually attracting the wrong people. By not being true to ourselves and our core values, we're attracting people who are dragging us down. Think about it this way. If authenticity, being your truest self, means sharing your values with people around you, you're going to attract people who share those values. And if being inauthentic means placating the people who don't agree with you, how are those people going to react when you eventually slip up in this pretend act of pretending to be someone that you're not? How are they going to react when you actually tell them how you feel? They're going to abandon you. They're going to leave. They're not going to be impressed with you. You're going to end up, by being this inauthentic version of yourself, attracting a whole slew of people that you have to keep up and act for. And that is exhausting. How much more freeing would it be if you were surrounded by people who shared your common viewpoints, your values, and your beliefs? Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't challenge ourselves with things outside of a box. Sometimes we need to question our values, and sometimes we need to question our beliefs, and that comes from seeing these people out there who necessarily don't agree with us. But that's about growth. That's about challenging who you are. It's not about challenging who they are. We can't control how other people think of us. That is outside of our control. You control how you think, you control how you act, and you control what you do. You control how you do those things. You don't control other people. Now, I mentioned earlier that there's neurological benefits to doing this, to letting go of trying to control everything outside of ourselves. And this comes to the other aspect of control. So we've been talking so far about the control of how other people see us, the control of how other people receive us, which is, again, an illusion. And we talked about the social benefits and the mental exhaustion that comes from not doing that. The social benefits that come from doing it, and the drawbacks, the exhaustion that comes from not doing it, not letting go, not being your authentic self. We're going to talk about the other type of control, the kind of control where you're trying to prevent yourself from failing, where you're trying to exert everything you can to making the very first time you try to do something perfect so that you are guaranteed success. And I think that there's a balance here that we need to find that is it's not about just letting that go and going willy-nilly into the face of danger. It's not about jumping out of a plane without a parachute. But it is about jumping out of the plane before it lands with a parachute and with the knowledge of how to operate that parachute. So it's an 80-20 rule. We need to practice 80% of control, but let go of that last 20%, where perfectionists try to control 100% of it instead of the 80%. You need to leave a little bit of room for failure. So here's the neuroscience behind it. And if you've been a fan of our channel, you might be a little tired of me saying this. But hopefully today it becomes super clear what I'm talking about. We're talking about the internal hormones that are results of our actions, of success or failure into anything we put our mind to. And the two chemicals specifically that I want to pay attention to here are dopamine and cortisol. Now, I am not a neuroscientist. I am trying to share my interpretation of the neuroscience that's out there. So I encourage you, if you're really interested in this, go out and read it for yourself. Look at the scientific studies or go to another channel that is a neuroscience channel and find out how they say it. But and I am reducing this down to really finite points. So I'm making generalizations about it. Dopamine and cortisol are the two hormones that we want to look at. Dopamine is the success hormone. Dopamine is released. It feels like euphoria. It feels like positivity. It feels like triumph. And dopamine is released when we succeed at whatever we put our mind out to do. Now, dopamine in excess actually reduces the amount of success that we feel. So when we only succeed at things, we get this hollow feeling, this feeling that we were successful, but it doesn't quite feel right. It feels like kind of like failure. It feels like we could have done better somehow. The other, and there's a neurological function here that dopamine doesn't just feel good. It actually does something to the wiring of our brain, of how our brain works. It says, not only does it feel good to do this, but I'm going to lay a new neural pathway, a new path in this forest of your brain that makes sure that it is easier for us to replicate this specific event. This is what neuroplasticity is all about. It's basically a trail that we've trailblazed through a forest that makes it easier to travel that same direction. That's think those same thoughts, try those same things because they were successful for us in the past. What we're doing when we try to control our success is we're favoring dopamine and we're losing out on the other half of that, and that is failure. Cortisol is the hormone that's released when we fail at something. It's the stress hormone. And it's also the hormone that you may recognize from advertisements causes belly fat. So you may think embracing failure makes you fat, but that's not actually how it works. It's constantly embracing failure, being surrounded by cortisol that's a problem. It lowers your metabolism. But cortisol feels awful. Cortisol feels like failure. It feels like that pit in your stomach. If you've ever felt like you've had a conversation with someone and the floor just dropped out from under you and your belly does a flip and you have this nauseous feeling, that that is the cortisol reaction. Now, just like dopamine, there's the feeling that we have that, ugh, oh, I failed, I'm miserable, I feel embarrassed, I feel ashamed feeling. But there's a neurological function that's going on that's extremely important. And science just discovered this just in the last 3 years. I like to think of dopamine and cortisol as an Etch-a-Sketch. If you remember, this is the classic toy. It came in a red plastic shell. It had two little white knobs on the front, and when you dialed those knobs, it would draw a line. Dial the knob this way, and the line would go this way. Dial the knob this way, and the line would go up and down. So you could draw a little intricate little maze as the little bead went around and drew a line. Drawing the line for the Etch-a-Sketch is the dopamine reaction. It's creating pinpoints from one point to another that our brain knows was there, that we can see on a map. That there's this line that we created in this Etch-a-Sketch. By the way, diagonal lines were almost impossible. They were always stairs. But cortisol is the other function of the Etch-a-Sketch. Cortisol is the eraser. Cortisol is, and this is what happens when you do an Etch-a-Sketch and you shake it, it erases all of the lines that you create. Cortisol's reaction in the brain helps us overcome failure by preventing us from trying the same thing that didn't work in the first place. It basically, if dopamine creates a path in the forest, cortisol goes through and replants all the seeds and helps them grow so that that path doesn't exist anymore. The scientific studies that happened 3 years ago proved that if we deprive ourselves of cortisol, our short term memory goes. People who have no cortisol lose their ability to remember things in the short term. So if we prevent our success, if we prevent failure and ensure success, we're actually preventing the way that our minds naturally work. We're overriding the Etch-a-Sketch and making sure that it's just a chaotic mess of lines without any hope of learning from them. In other words, if we fail to let ourselves be successful, or to let ourselves fail, if we endeavor to let ourselves only be successful and prevent our failure, we're failing to grow. We're failing to be the best version of ourselves. We're failing to develop. We're failing to grow. We're failing to learn. We're eliminating the option to learn and to be the best version of ourselves. Perfectionism is a trap that prevents us from growing. And that's a shame. There is a solution, and it's a lifelong effort to helping us overcome our need to control how successful we are or what other people think of us. We already know, based on this show at least, and you can double check my work if you want. Search cortisol's effect on short term memory, for example. But there's a solution, and it is not difficult, but it is because it takes a lot of effort. It takes a lifetime of work. And I'm walking this journey. I'm not at the destination yet. I'm not some Zen Buddhist master that you can follow that has all of the answers in the universe. But I can tell you how close you are to the path. Here are the simple steps to take to overcoming your need to control the uncontrollable. The first one is consciousness. We talk a lot about this on the channel. The ways to improve your consciousness are to really get curious with who you are and why you act the way you do. To journal, to think creatively about what you might learn to do if you fail. To really consider what you're costing yourself if you don't let yourself fail. Objective reasoning is the next step. And that is, what's the worst that could happen really is to step outside of your fear and to look at it objectively. I had a client who was afraid of doing a blog post because she was afraid that people would think less of her if she posted this blog. So she had written this blog, and for 3 months she sat on it without pushing the button. She was afraid that people would think less of her. Then she realized that she would never be successful if she didn't post this thing, this post, this announcement. It was an important step for her own success and her own development and her own growth. And that the worst thing that could happen is that she learns more about herself. Or she loses one of those people she's been dragging along by pretending to be someone that she's not. Being clear on your own values is the third step to overcoming this illusion of control. Learning about your own opinions and your own values and being clear with them, and being okay with people who think differently. Setting boundaries around what other people control about you. Being clear about your core values. Working on your identifying those core values, discovering more about yourself every day. And one of the things I mentioned there is boundaries, is around recognizing that you want people to love you as your authentic self, and to reject the fact that you want people to love you for pretending to be someone that they can like, that they can appreciate. That shining as your authentic self will attract the people in your life that will not lead to social exhaustion, that will lead to growth and harmony and balance. And finally, the last step is to be clear on what you have to lose if you don't hold yourself back. I'm sorry, if you do hold yourself back, that you're clear that you're losing your authenticity, that you're clear that you're losing touch with your own values, that you may face more imposter syndrome, that you may face more rejection, that you may feel more judged by other people because you're projecting constantly on them. That what you really have to lose is ultimately your soul. Now, I said these steps are simple. They're simple in that I can say them. They're simple in that if you sat down and really thought about it, you could do it. But it is very difficult, like swimming upstream up a rapids. And I'm here to help. That is my job as a coach. That's my calling, if you will. It's a spiritual calling for me, I've realized in the last couple of weeks, that I am here to make people's lives better by helping them find their more authentic version of themselves and to live that truth. If you resonate with me and you need help walking this journey, you have nothing to lose to reach out to me and schedule a free initial consult. It is free. And during that 30 minutes, we're going to determine whether I'm the right coach for you or if there's a better one. And we're also going to determine whether or not coaching is the right answer for you, because coaching is difficult. Coaching inspires you to ignite your own inner wisdom. And that's not for everyone. We'll discover that during our free 30-minute initial consult. And ultimately, if you do decide to hire me as a coach, you get a free 100% money back guarantee that you will be satisfied with the services that you get. No questions. You tell me you're dissatisfied, I'll send you your money back. So hire me if you're interested, but don't just hire me. Find out. Schedule that 30-minute free initial consult with me. You can find it on my webpage. There'll be a link in the comments to this video after this when I'm done. I want to thank you so much for being here, being part of my show. Sometimes I feel like it's difficult to come up with topics each week, and other times it's so incessantly urgent that I have these conversations. Not just because there's someone out there like you who needs to hear them, but because sometimes I need to hear them myself. Today, I realized I forgot to post about this video. I even forgot to create this video. I make mistakes, and I get to learn from them every day. And by having the opportunity to talk to you about these things, I feel like I'm becoming a better version of myself every day. If you want to share what you've learned today, please share this with someone who could use a little pick me up, who could maybe think about how they're changing or altering their lives for the worst by trying to control the uncontrollable. And if you could just take a moment of your time to support the channel by liking this video and subscribing to the channel, that would also be a big benefit, a big boon, if you will. I'd also love to see in the comments what you're inspired to do, what control means to you, and what things in your life are uncontrollable that you want to be more curious about and you want to start exerting some of these habits around. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back live next week on Wednesday at 3:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We're bringing on a guest. She is a PCC certified coach, and she's going to be talking about how to recognize when you want a coach in your life, when you might need a coach in your life. I'll see you then. I can't wait. Thank you so much for being here with me today. Bye.